Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Trevor Smith-Miller. I'm the Communications Manager for the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you're new to our webinar series, a little background on our group. CCSN is an organization working with cancer patients and survivors to learn about the complexity of our health system, connect with others to plan action, and act on those plans to create better outcomes and healthy survivorship. Please visit our website to find plenty of information like news and events and, of course, our webinar series. Now, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on YouTube, and a link will be provided by the email you registered with, along with a link to the slides provided with this presentation. We will have a quick Q&A session at the end, but don't wait to the end to ask your question. If you would like, please type in your question in the chat function here on Zoom. And I have the pleasure of welcoming back Dr. Rob Rutledge. He is a radiation oncologist in Halifax, Nova Scotia, specializing in breast, prostate, and pediatric cancers, and is an associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University. His passion is empowering people affected by cancer and has delivered hundreds of public talks and webinars, including quite a few for CCSN, along with over 60 retreats and day-long seminars to thousands of cancer survivors. Rob has received a Cancer Care Nova Scotia Award for excellence in patient care, and Doctors Nova Scotia presented him with a Health Promotion Award in recognition of his contribution to physician health and health promotion in cancer patients. And he also co-leads CancerPEP, a comprehensive 6-month daily patient empowerment program. So without further ado, I would like to hand it on over to Dr. Rutledge for eating after a cancer diagnosis, the science and practice of nourishing yourself. So take it away, Rob.
Thank you so much, Trevor. It's always a pleasure to work with CCSN. You guys are doing very meaningful work, and I just want to welcome everybody who has joined the webinar now, who is watching it afterwards. I've summarized this topic, an extremely important topic. I really think this lecture, what you're about to learn, is extremely important. And the science is coming together. I've translated the science, and I'm really hoping that people can walk away with their questions, answers, and knowing that they can actually improve their health. There is shocking news here as well. I think I've been learning about ultra-processed foods, and it is worrisome. So I just want to empower you in lots of different ways. Note, I'm not using the word diet because I think it's more about eating and eating patterns and nourishing yourself and not kind of feeling a sense of restriction. So healthy eating after a cancer diagnosis. Take-home points. I would always point you towards the experts, right? I think almost everybody with a cancer diagnosis should talk with a nutritionist to get that individualized advice. We've stumbled on it absolutely correctly. The whole foods, plant-based mostly, anti-inflammatory diet is best. We're going to talk about time-restricted eating.
Yes.
And ultimately, I want you to think about transforming your diet over a number of months. And ultimately, you want to maintain that diet that satisfies you, makes you happy, gives you energy, allows you to think better, right? You want to do all those things. And ultimately, you can improve your health and get yourself through the treatments, help yourself through recovery, give yourself the best chance in the long term. So both short and long-term physical and mental health. The eating aspect, the dietary pattern is so important there. Excuse me. Okay, so this is how we're going to cover this, and we're also going to talk about some myths, right? So about diet. Maybe I should tell you that I'm almost all vegetarian, vegan. Maybe I eat fish maybe once a month. So just to let you know what I've settled on myself here. We also put this within the context. It's just not about diet. Although those people who do exceptionally well, the remarkable cancer survivors, take their diet very seriously. So understanding, empowering yourself. So this information, right, even about diet, getting the best care from the medical system, and then all those healthy habits have an influence on the conditions in which cancer cells can grow or get worse or so on. And there's healing at the level of mind, which is not separate from your diet, right? Because your diet influences how your mind and your brain actually works. And then kind of a spiritual perspective, including connection, family, the social aspect of diet and eating. Okay, so then when would you absolutely, I would want to say, come on, you really should be advocating for yourself and getting the best from the medical system. So I recommend it to everybody. So you ask your physician, your family doctor, your oncologist, your nurse, like, where can I find more information? Where can I get my individualized advice? But especially if the treatment is affecting how you're eating, your gastrointestinal tract, or you're getting constipation, diarrhea, whether you're carrying too much weight or too little weight, those are cues to say, maybe I need a little bit of extra help there. And especially if you're kind of struggling with maybe perfectionism or, having frustrations with this deal. We're all human, right? And so it helps to tap into those resources and get the expertise from many, many great people within the medical system. Okay, so I also think about, like, how is this happening? Why is it that diet can help you? And I think about, it's not just the genes and chromosomes, the cells that are at issue. It's actually the whole environment. It's a micro ecosystem, right? So it's the fluid around the cells that contain the chemicals that can prime the cells to grow faster. Those chemicals can also cause damage. And one of the things I've learned is that inflammation, or like irritation of the tissue, any tissue, will release those chemicals that can cause further damage to the cells, increase cell turnover, and you don't want that to be happening. You don't want the cells to be growing more quickly. So ultimately, even though we're talking about diet and eating patterns today, I'm trying to push people towards this anti-inflammatory lifestyle, which is including exercise, practicing relaxation techniques, stress reduction, connection with your loved ones, oxytocin. Touch is helpful, getting into nature, as these two are here. Okay, so how is it that diet helps people to heal from or recover from cancer? Number of mechanisms. So I think about cancers as starting as normal cells, and they get enough mutations or changes, they turn into slow growing cancer cells, and they keep on going. They get more mutations, they turn into fast growing cells. So the first thing is not, if you have cancer cells in your body, not to change them into the faster, more aggressive cells. And so, for instance, the antioxidants that we talk about in fruits and vegetables are there. They can kind of mop up those damaging chemicals. So you're kind of cleaning up your system. When you practice time-restricted eating, you're also mopping up those dangerous chemicals, the bits, the inflammation, and stopping slow-growing cells becoming fast-growing cells. And then the whole idea is that the sugary stuff, those pops, those refined carbohydrates, the sugars, the breads, the white rices, it's those things cause spikes in the blood sugar, and that causes the body to react, including putting out insulin-like growth factor, which does prime the cells to grow, to turn over, and so on. It's probably one of the reasons why, the sugary diet, a very, very sugary diet, is not good for us. So we change the soup into the healthiest soup possible, changes the conditions for those cells that can growing, and super important in terms of our immune function, our capacity to actually identify cancer cells as foreign and to actually kill them. And it's particularly important in certain types of cancers, like, for instance, kidney cancer, colorectal cancer, lung cancer, and so on. Ultimately, I'm hoping that you can come into this space where you're really taking care of yourself to the best you can, so that your body has that innate capacity to heal and to recover and to get through treatments and to feel strong. So that's the hope. There's a huge burgeoning data about what they call the microbiome, which is the 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. They are your friends. You cannot survive without them. In fact, you're probably responsible for keeping them alive and you alive. No doubt about it. They are essential because they're breaking down. So no matter how much you chew and how much acid goes there, they're actually breaking down the food into something you can actually digest. And they're putting out hormone production like serotonin. The 80% of our immune cells are at the layer of the surface of the intestine, right? And so if you are not respectful of your bacteria, your immunity goes down, and you can run into lots of different problems. So that's the issue, is that these processed foods, these refined foods, are not good for us. They actually change the composition. What you want is a forest with lots of different trees, lots of them, and lots of different types of them. And so what happens is we irritate that areas that the tight junctions between the cells get a little bit leaky, and the chemicals, the bad chemicals within a bad diet can get right into your bloodstream instantly. And that sets off a whole bunch of things like priming the immune function. Those chemicals start to bind with proteins and sugars and so on to create these other chemicals that are really bad for us in lots of different ways. So super important that we respect our gut as much as we can. I know people are going through chemotherapy, that's going to, kill some cells as well, but we really need to feed it. We need to take care of those bacteria. They are so incredibly important to us. And fiber, first thing about fiber, it's best that it comes in whole foods, because it's there's a process that happens as the food breaks down within the gut. It's like soluble protein needs to get right down into the deepest part of the gut. You just can't take extra fiber. It's actually embedded in those whole foods. So incredibly important, and why our veggies are so important. Prebiotics are the good bacteria that you can add. So I'm actually had a little bit of lunch. My wife is a really good cook. So she had a lentil stew, a lentil soup, tomato paste, and then we added a little bit of sauerkraut on top. And within the sauerkraut is bacteria. And so I'm putting bacteria, I'm swallowing bacteria so it can kind of take over. Fiber super important, but you also want to kind of expose yourself to a little bit of the good bacteria as well. It's probably the most helpful thing. So microbiome, principles of a healthy diet. So I want to see big picture first as to what you can do. And it's these principles. There is no superfood. There's no one, right food for you that you need to be overdosing on. It's a complexity, a multitude, diversity, almost at every meal. But essentially, this is the takeaway: eat food, i.e., not chemicals. That maybe you're thinking whole foods, mostly plants, again, because of the antioxidants and the fiber, et cetera, and not too much. If you eat well, then your satiety systems, you won't feel as hungry, you won't overeat on average. It's the best way to go at this. So there's not a diet that I'm pushing you towards. I'm pushing you towards principles, and the principles ultimately will get your body in the best condition. I would say when you're looking at your plate, 50+% are the fruits and vegetables. In fact, eat them first to stretch your stomach. You want a complex, you're going to have carbohydrates. It's part of a healthy diet. But the more complex the carbohydrate, the more it's kind of embedded in the matrix of the food, the more difficult it is to kind of get it into your bloodstream, i.e. the slower it is to absorb, the better, because you don't want the spikes in the sugar level. So I'm suggesting to you neither low carb nor high carb is the best diet on average. And I'll do it on average because we're so different. I really think about proteins and fats from non-meat sources more. You can add a little bit of meat, et cetera, et cetera. Less meat, definitely no red meat. I think again, it's not absolute. I guess there are some people that need their red meat, or maybe your weight is so low that I would say to you, eat whatever you want. Eat your ice cream and chocolate for lunch. I don't care as long as you get the calories in at that point in time. But essentially, no red meat. We're going to talk about healthy fluids. The fiber part of that is, again, embedded in the healthy foods. And again, the high nutrient dense foods, like real nutrients, like vitamins and minerals, et cetera, not necessarily the dense calories. So the foods interact with each other. So it combines the vitamins, minerals. In terms of a supplement, I think everybody should be on vitamin D within Canada, probably 10 months per year. B12 if you're a vegan. Talk to your doctor. Maybe you need an omega-3 if you're a vegan, but we'll talk about that. And ultimately, I want you to be healthy and feel good, both mentally and physically in the long term. So this is a learning process whereby you learn what foods make you feel good, what give you energy, what give you strength, what allow you to think more clearly. So it's really about that pattern over time. And there is no one best diet, right? So I can give you the principles, and then you need to kind of integrate and test those principles within your life. Okay. I was thinking about the big four food groups, right? You would usually think like proteins and so on. So fruits and veggies actually should be food groups by themselves because they're so incredibly important. I'm saying grains. The problem, for instance, with brown bread is, yeah, sure, they may take a whole grain and it looks brown, et cetera, et cetera. But if they grind it up so much that it turns into a powder, you think about that powder getting into your gut, and the powder gets absorbed into your system very quickly. And so that processing diminishes, even though it's got the micronutrients in the whole grain, it diminishes the experience or the quality of that food. So as much intact as possible. I think this is the secret: legumes, beans, seeds, and nuts. And I'm also conscious that the prices of foods have really jumped a lot recently. And even though I'm going to keep harping at you around fruits and vegetables, I understand they're expensive. But for instance, beans, red beans, those, kidney beans, those are really, first of all, they're not that expensive. Like, they're pretty cheap actually, but they have protein, they have fiber, there's some embedded starches in them, etc. So there are some options to make these things work and keep it within budget as well. I'd also just add a kind of tongue in cheek. I've also learned from a cancer perspective, mushroom is a really good suggestion. Right. Not only does it have the proteins, but it has some really good antioxidant properties, et cetera, et cetera. So really, I think there's more and more data to suggest that mushrooms are a kind of a key food group amongst the many food groups, right, as integrated into a bigger diet. There are no superfoods, and I would especially caution you against any type of advertisement label. As soon as the label says like high in protein or something like that, or low in salt, then I would be really worried, and I would start to read the label very carefully and the ingredients very carefully. The whole foods, the fruits and vegetables, don't have those labels, right? So just be careful. And of the advertising, sure, blueberries are a good food, but it's part of a combined diet. It's not a superfood or something you need to overdose on in any way. Okay, so this is the book that really shocked me, really scared me, because it's pretty obvious that we're suffering as a society from ultra-processed foods. So I call them ultra-processed food-like substances, because that's essentially the majority of what's in the grocery stores right now. So Chris Van Tolken is the author here, and he wrote the book Ultra-Processed People. And it's a really good read, and it's also highly disturbing. And you're gonna hear more and more about this burgeoning science here. So essentially, and we're not going to kind of blame anybody, but the food industry essentially is looking for profits, and so they create their nutrients to be cheaper, and they're using certain elements of food. So they'll take a grain, for instance, or an oil, and continue to refine it. They get it into kind of base form, but in that process, you're losing out on a lot of the nutrients in the meantime, right? So the extracting processes cause a stripping of the nutrients, and then you're recombining them with other kind of micronutrients without actually benefiting the overall quality of the food. When you eat a whole food or a natural food, there's like usually hundreds of really important chemicals that run together. It's what they call the matrix within that food, and that those chemicals interact with each other, and they interact with the bacteria, and it's designed through evolution to be much healthier. So on the other end of the spectrum is the ultra-processed food-like substances. And then if you think about it, not only are they creating these foods, but they're trying to distribute them, over a large geographic range. And so the preservatives come in, and that's a worry in and of itself and all that stuff. So ultimately, you're right. The food industry has created cheaper products so to conserve, more of humanity, but it's done us a huge disservice while we're doing that. So what's happening? They're maximizing their profits, and the they make their foods to be addictive, essentially. And how do you do that? You have that combination of salt, sugar, and fat. It tastes good. It's also soft, so you can ingest it quickly, and very energy dense. It's as if you ingest the calories so quickly that your brain doesn't have a chance to recognize that you've kind of overeaten in that moment. So that's the issue. And so their goal is to actually have you overeat. The more you eat, the more profit they make. And then they're also marketing, right? So again, just don't trust the marketing. You need to be thinking about whole foods processed in an eating pattern and not as a single food itself. And it's been an iterative cycle over decades of the design, the tasting, the focus groups, and ultimately about market share. And whichever products sell the most are the products that stay on the shelves. And that's what we're looking at as I'm walking through the grocery stores, all these ultra processed foods. And that's why I find this so disturbing. Mario Kratz, his talk was really talking about weight gains, but he gave some really good principles. So I'm just going to quote his slide. So thanks, Mario, for your help there. This NOVA classification was created by a Brazilian researcher who noticed in the 90s that there was an epidemic of obesity in Brazil, and he had kind of surveyed the population, and they were eating the same type of foods through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But as soon as the ultra processed foods came in the 90s, that's when the obesity epidemic took over, as it has kind of internationally. And so his study was breaking the foods into 3 different types, and we're going to process our food. So, we're going to be grinding foods. We're going to be cooking foods. There's nothing wrong with kind of the minimal processing. It's when you get into the ultra processing that I've been describing that's the problem there. So, for instance, canned fish. We even have some sardines. I'm happy to say here, or that I just showed you some sauerkraut, for instance, that has fermentation process. But typically, the first 3 categories usually only have 2 or 3 ingredients at most, which is a whole separate category from the ultra processed foods, right? And has all sorts of other ingredients and high oftentimes in these sugars and syrups and fats and bad oils, et cetera, food additives that are not good for us. So how do we identify it? Generally speaking, it contains many ingredients, and there's no kind of cutoff, 5 or more ingredients. They're using extracts from the foods, chemicals that you wouldn't recognize as you would understand in a moment I'll show you. Emulsifiers. So that is a chemical that allows the fat to attach to a kind of a moisture product, keeps the foods kind of moist over time. The problem is those same emulsifiers grab on top of the lining of your gut and kind of rip some of those cells. So that's the issue around emulsifiers, and it really sets you up for then the leaky gut syndrome. So it's substances you wouldn't have in your kitchen, or that you can't make that food by yourself because you don't have all those chemicals hanging around. Almost all the supermarket bread is an ultra processed food. Please read the labels. It's scary. The breakfast cereals, again, it's just like, I look at my shelf now and I go like, my God, how much real food do I actually have there? Most of the yogurts, there are some healthy yogurts, the energy bars, the energy drinks, the, any of those snacks, the foods wrapped in plastic, like, the quick pizza or lasagna wrapped in plastic, almost always has all of these chemicals in it. This is not good for us. Okay, so then Mario is describing all of these kind of potential add-ons, right? The artificial flavors, the caking, the glazings. I told you about the emulsifiers, the colors, the hydrogenated vegetable oils. They're all foreign to our system. Our brain, our hunger center doesn't recognize these chemicals, and we're causing some major problems. So the other thing I learned is that we shouldn't be looking at what they call macronutrients. We shouldn't be looking at the fats and the proteins and the sugars and salts. You can look at that, but a fat is not a fat is not a fat. It's like there are different qualities to these. A carb is not a carb, for instance. So it's too artificial way to break down the foods. And in fact, the whole foods are so complex. The natural products are so complex that you're not getting the sense of interaction between all those things. What we should be reading is the ingredients then. Wow, I can hardly even pronounce this. Azodicarbamide, ADA, like what's that? Dough conditioner, potassium sorbate. I think it's just really worrisome when I don't even recognize what those chemicals are and I'm ingesting them. So luckily, I think Canadian government is a little bit more progressive than most people within the world, as they're starting to recognize the highly processed foods are not good for us as well. So obviously, the sugary drinks, that's cancer in a can from my perspective. The jams, just look at it. Where does sugar sit in the ingredient list? The chocolates, the cookies, the potato chips. Ice cream almost always has the emulsifiers. It's built to stay soft over a very long distance, right? So all these, and obviously the French fries, the pizzas, the deli meats, all that stuff is just not good for you. I'm sorry. I took this picture from one of our, big box store sites. This is ice cream. This is ultra processed food. And I like this line in the middle, contains bioengineered food ingredients. What does that do to your body? So even though it's maybe a small percentage of the ultimate product. So I don't really agree with their quote, great quality. I don't think that's a quality food. It may be cheaper, but it's not a quality food. Why am I harping? Why am I, very adamant about this? Right now, probably Canada matches the US. 50 to 60% of our caloric intakes are coming from ultra processed foods. In their kids, scary 75%. And in kids, it's associated with anxiety and depression, not being able to concentrate, diabetes, obesity. The calories are going in. We don't even recognize that we're full. And it's just, it's a loop. And then you're going to do that over years. Even if you gain a pound a month, just think about it. It's not very much extra calories to gain a pound a month. The issue for us in the adult side of it is these foods are more and more clearly associated with poor mental health, right? What happens to your brain? The inflammatory process, for instance, I'll show you some studies around increased risk of cancer. Again, if something is known to increase the risk of cancer, then you want to avoid that after you get a cancer diagnosis. Don't turn the slow growing cells into fast growing cells. There's the obesity epidemic itself. Our brains, it's having an effect at the cellular level, which puts us at risk of Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative disease, lots of other medical conditions, diabetes, chemical disease, arthritic diseases. It's just like you're irritating the system by eating chemicals. Sorry to say. Here's the study from the UK. Essentially, almost 200,000 people followed from 2009 onwards. So for the first 4 years, they did a 24-hour dietary assessment, and they followed them for 10 years, essentially. At that time, the people were only eating about, on average, 25% of their calories in ultra-processed foods. But for every 10% jump in ultra-processed food percentage of diet, there was like a 2 or 3% increase in cancer. It doesn't sound like much, but that's, and you're thinking about 60 or 70% people getting their calories from ultra-processed foods. So that's worrisome. And you probably don't feel as good. Okay, so this is another really classic study. This is a super important study from Kevin Hall NIH in the States. They took 20 adults that didn't have any medical condition. They were just overweight, and held them inside for 28 days and offered them whatever they wanted to eat, and also measured what they actually ate, and did these kind of surveys as well. So they were measured closely, but they were held within like an inpatient unit. And they were randomly assigned to a healthy diet or an ultra-processed diet. And then after 2 weeks, they switched to the other group. So then it was a crossover there. And the unhealthy diet had 80% of the calories through ultra-processed foods. The healthy diet had 80% of the calories through whole foods. Now, it wasn't like, chips and pop for one group and celery and broccoli for the other group. They tried to make the foods look very similar. Like, for instance, the yogurt could be an ultra-processed yogurt versus a healthy yogurt with 2 or 3 ingredients and maybe some nuts added on. If they offered a blueberry muffin, one was like processed through the kind of grocery store, but other ones were kind of homemade with kind of natural ingredients. So they tried to make the foods very similar in terms of caloric intake, the amount of macronutrients. So they had to add more fiber to the ultra processed guys. They added some more fruit to the healthy guys because they added some more sugar to that system. And so ultimately the foods were matched. Now, interestingly, the participants were filling out the surveys. They felt full to the same degree, and they also felt that they enjoyed the food just as much, whether they were on the crappy food or the whole food. And what happened to the two groups? The ultra processed food folks ate 500 calories more per day, 2,900 versus 2,400 calories per day. During those 2 weeks, the ultra processed guys gained 2 pounds, whereas the healthy group lost 2 pounds, and then they crossed over and they did it as well. And so then why was there a weight gain? There obviously, I mean, there were more calories going in, but the ultra processed food guys like felt the same. They felt satiated after their dinner and so on. And so we don't know exactly why there's weight gain there. Perhaps it's calorie density. The food is getting into the system so quickly that the brain can't identify that you're actually full, and so you're more likely to overeat. And then the other thing is that some of these chemicals are causing inflammation, and perhaps they're interfering with the appetite centers. Regardless, it's strong science to suggest we need to stay away from foods with so many chemicals in them. So please avoid the junky stuff, the processed foods, the red meat. And we're going to talk about how you might be able to do that. Does sugar feed cancer? Well, maybe high levels of the sugary drinks, et cetera, but fruit, for instance, contains, it's like within a matrix itself, and it's a slow release. So it's the same fructose, but it's a slow release, and they're also the antioxidants. Lots of chemicals in fruit that kind of mitigate against like a quick spike in the blood sugars. That's the issue, is the spike in the blood sugars, inflammation, cancer risk. And then I would also say at each meal, it's why it's important to eat lots of different types of food, and especially getting in some of that protein and the fiber and the healthy fats early on in the dinner, because then you get that kind of feeling of fullness early, and so then you're less likely to overeat. So we want the slow burn sugars, and so sugar doesn't cause cancer, although I wouldn't want you to eat the refined sugars, but stay away from the cancer in a can. I think that would be the kind of the takeaway on this side. Little or no red meat, yes. There's lots of data to suggest that the red meat irritates the gut and also makes it more difficult for the healthy bacteria to live. So again, the meat is acting as an irritant and causing more inflammation. I would say fish is okay. The issue around fish is there's a lot of heavy metals in fish. We want to get them lower down the kind of food chain, so away from the tuna, for instance. And then we also have to think from an environmental perspective. The fish farms are not good for us in different ways, but the fish does contain some omega-3s that is an essential fatty acid. Yes, I'm not going to be restrictive in my recommendations. You just want to have less of the meat and more of the healthy stuff. So you're kind of it's a substitution, it's a pattern. And you want to enjoy every dish that you make. Myth: we don't get enough protein if we don't eat meat. It's so obvious that we're getting way too much protein anyways, and essentially the extra protein that we get, we put it into our fat stores, right? So it's the same building blocks whether you get it from animal muscle or plants. It's the same amino acids, right? So how does the bull become so massively strong and muscular eating grass? Because they're eating protein, essentially. There's protein in the grass. What I would say is you want to kind of mix and match your foods, the foods especially that contain protein, at each meal, because it's the complement. You want to get a certain level of each type of essential amino acid. Essential means your body can't produce it. You kind of have to ingest it. And so it's like putting together the pieces of a Scrabble board. It's like putting together 3 games and making sure you've got enough of each of the letters so that you actually have one game that has the right combination of letters, and all the extra pieces get absorbed and stored away as protein or peed away, et cetera, et cetera. So here again, here are the secrets to this as well, is adding the nutrient seeds, beans, legumes have high protein balance. And the recommended daily intake was set up to satisfy 97.5% of the population, right? So therefore, almost everybody's getting way more protein than they need. Okay, healthy sources of protein, grains, especially the whole grains, nuts and beans. And I've given you some lists of this. So you can learn how to do this in tasty dishes that make you feel really good. And the test for me is, how do you feel 2 or 3 hours after your meal? Are you hungry? Here's some beautiful foods. Look at that. These all contain protein. Can you imagine? Carrots contain protein. Obviously, the seeds. Broccoli contains protein. Green beans. Lots of great stuff there. Whole, healthy, whole grain. So again, the issue around grains is that we don't want to just do the processed grain, because then you're losing the kind of micronutrient within the kind of shell and so on. So quinoa would be a really nice, healthy swap for a white rice, for instance, although the brown or wild rice do have lots of micronutrients. So there's lots of options. We have access to international foods now. We can kind of test and so on. And I again, diversity. I'm not trying to eat the same type of meal, too many times per week, for instance, although that works all right. This line here, no sweet, no wheat, no dairy, no refined foods, reminds me of the radical remissions, the book about remarkable cancer survivors, people who've undergone spontaneous remission, et cetera, et cetera. And all of the attributes, all of the people that undergo that, almost all of them do look at their diet very carefully, make sure their diet is the best possible diet for themselves. I think it's partly because it's a reflection of their proactivity and willingness to really take care of themselves. But at the same time, I do think that when your diet's on, your immune function works better, you're healthier, stronger, more positive mood. I think all those things combine together to create the conditions in which, the home run scenario can happen. So organic, I think I may have mentioned organic when you can. I think it's a good idea. Definitely be washing your veggies. Okay, supplements. Should you be taking supplements? And the answer is probably yes, to vitamin D only. Right? So there's some good data now showing that it decreases the risk of some cancers. Yes, you need it for your bone health as well, but it's in some sense anti-inflammatory. You don't want to go beyond 1,000 to 2,000 international units unless your physician says so. There's also some data suggests that if you're older and your diet is starting to be compromised, that a multivite is probably good for you, but it would just be the essentials and not beyond the recommended daily values for any one of those elements. So no overdosing on the big stuff. If you're a vegan, yes, you probably need to get your vitamin B12 supplement, which is what we get every day. You can get your blood levels checked, right, in terms of vitamin D or B12 to find out if you're adequately eating. So again, almost all of you, as long as you get your vitamin D in and you have a balanced diet that's varied, multiple types of foods each day, then almost always you're good. Okay, omega-3. So I found out recently, because I wasn't eating much fish, I was worried that maybe my omega-3 intake wasn't there. So I actually ordered some omega-3 produced by Algae. It's a Canadian company. I'll probably gonna take a pill like maybe twice a week just to make sure I've got enough omega-3. Also, when I go to a restaurant like once a month, and then I'll eat fish at that point. So again, I'm trying to get a little bit of variation. I've been a vegan for 4 years now, and I'm stronger, healthier, and clearer thinking than I've been in decades. Cardiovascular wise, I'm really in good shape right now. Healthy fluids, another option for you. And I think about the swaps, right? So, do not buy the cancer in a can. Instead, have that bottle of water close by. You're sipping at it all day long. There's also lots of beautiful teas that have these antioxidants in it that taste great. They give you some good nutrition that way. Warm water lemon in the morning. Sorry, guys, you're really down to probably a drink or less of alcohol. I think there's another slide there, but alcohol is essentially a toxin to your brain. And so it's just not good for you in lots of ways. Almond milk and so on. Yeah, I mean, you can still drink regular cow's milk. I just would say limit the amount. Okay, coffee is bad for you? No, coffee is, I've been teasing my wife for a long time, but no, coffee is actually a good product. There is antioxidant properties in it. I would just say drink it earlier in the day because the half-life of the caffeine is, 5 to 8 hours. So you're kind of have residual caffeine in your system. You may not be able to sleep as well. And ultimately, this is about you enjoying your life. And if you love coffee, then do it. Enjoy it. Fat is bad for you. Oh my goodness, what happened to us as a society, right? From low fat to no fat to now high fat diets, keto diets. I think there should be a healthy fat diet. I think that's the diet. And thankfully, they've taken the trans fats out of it. There are some good saturated fats, but we need the fats. We want to have good fats in your system. So I'm thinking about the olive oils. I'm thinking about the rapeseed oil. We're thinking about the avocado oils, right? So there's lots of good options on that side. Olive oil, what you're looking for is something that's within the last year. So it's not too old, so it doesn't kind of desaturate. It's cold pressed. And so the healthier high-end olive oil is the better oil. Grapeseed, I think, is the UK version of the same thing. I like avocado oil for cooking because it doesn't desaturate when it gets too hot. But again, don't cook things too hot. And you want, again, it's better, like for instance, if you want avocado oil, it's better to eat the avocado. So it's presented to your body in the matrix of the food with those other micronutrients. Very important. Okay, so I just want to talk about omega-3s because there is an association. If you get enough omega-3, less inflammation, less irritation, better able to think and so on. There's this ratio of omega-6, which is, we still need omega-6, but if you get too much omega-6 compared with omega-3, then that's not healthy for us. And that's currently what's happening within our diet itself. So omega-3 you can get from plants. It comes out as ALA, and it's found in these foods. However, it's only a small percentage or a smaller percentage that gets converted into the long chain omega-3s in our body. And so that's why I'm a little bit worried that, I need to keep on watching for the omega-3 side. However, I mean, I'm 4 years into veganism and feeling extremely well with very little fish. So fish is unstable. So the long chain fatty acids are unstable, and so they can go rancid quickly. So again, you would want to eat fresh fish in order to get the benefits of omega-3s in the fish side. Diet that elevates mood. Okay, now I show you this slide partly because I want to now talk about something extremely important, which is personalizing your diet. I'm now recognizing that if I eat a banana about 2 hours later, hour and a half, 2 hours later, I'm starting to feel woozy. I'm pretty sure that I'm getting a sugar spike from eating banana. So banana is not a good food for me. However, it would be a very good food for a lot of people. For me, apples hit the spot. I always feel good after an apple. So again, there's different ways to have an influence on our mood, including Brazil nuts and so on. So dark chocolate, just go in the high cocoa content. Personalizing your diet. Okay, this is the point. So how is it you can figure out what you actually need? I've given you the principles of lots of varied whole foods, capturing the micronutrients, the hundreds of chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. That's the important thing. But even then, you can start to vary and test different dishes that are good for you. And so there's a couple of things. As I say, watch to see how you feel, right? So if I drink pure orange juice, I do not feel well for probably about 3 hours. I know that sugar is that's as bad as a can of Coke, really, because there's such a high sugar spike. If I eat a whole orange, there's enough fiber there that slows down the process of getting the sugar into the blood system. So again, figure out what makes you feel good. And that's more important than really probably all the science here. There's a next level of science of actually using a blood sugar monitor. It's a kind of continuous reading it kind of takes a sample of your blood every 15 minutes or so and gives you, or continuously, and gives you those levels. And so you can see if you spike after, for instance, eating a banana. And then the last thing is, there's more and more kind of genetic analysis of our poop, essentially, and it can assess the diversity of the microbiome, the diversity of the bacteria within our system. And that's going to help us figure out which foods actually help us, which fibers help us, how much fiber we need to eat of what food. The polyphenols is also one of the key words now around plants that have these chemicals that actually prime the microbiome to work better for us. Brain food, again, you would have to experiment to figure out what makes you happy, what gives you, that better thinking, clear thinking, more energy, and how you do it there. And it's not just one food. I warn you against that. The spices, super easy to integrate into the healthier diets, right? So you're thinking of turmeric and, your rice and your different curries and so on. Ginger, another one that you can add to, it's so easy to kind of grind that onto your vegetables, stir fry. So I meant that to be with garlic. Ginger, we put in our smoothies, for instance. Healthy swaps. So how do we do this? How do you get a healthier diet? Lots of ways, and then we talk about this in the CancerPEP program, lots of ways to look for swapping out the sugary, unhealthy, ultra-processed stuff and putting in something that's good for you, that's going to fill you up and make you feel better, right? And so water, piece of fruit, bean salad, the oatmeal, right, which is what my breakfast is, spaghetti squash, the roasted vegetables, popcorn, apple, like those are all good snacks by themselves. Is dairy good or bad? I would say limit the high fat stuff, but really it's not bad. I think just we want to watch the quantity that we drink. So not too much dairy from cows. Obviously, there's lots of ways to get more calcium there. I'd also point you to this idea that invest in your shopping and go shopping when you're not hungry. So you want to plan ahead and make sure you get your plan for the week. Hungry or tired, when I'm hungry or tired shopping, it's easier for the cookies to get into the bottom of the cart. Read the labels, 100%. Don't buy, if the unhealthy stuff doesn't get into your cupboard, then you're very unlikely to eat it at 10:30 at night when you're having some cravings. This is the ingredients from my preferred oatmeal. I'm thinking even then it's probably a little bit more processed than I'd like, but I do feel good afterwards. And these are all kind of healthy nutrients. So I worry about the processing, but they are healthy nutrients. It's a good product there. Efficient preparation. So you're thinking about cooking maybe on Sunday afternoon, and so they can put aside those easy to eat healthy snacks, and right up at the front of the fridge, so that as soon as you open the fridge, they're right there for you. A little bit of fruit or an easy vegetable. Pre-chop your veggies, quick little stir fry, et cetera, et cetera. Frozen foods, other dietary hack, hugely important because you really do retain those micronutrients. For the most part, it's a really great option. So the blueberries, I like this kind of, it's been a game changer for me, this kind of mixed veggie, because I can heat them up quickly and I'm still getting a fantastic dish that I feel good with. So blueberries, the veggies, cauliflower crust pizza. I'm now starting to question that, like, what's in the other ingredients within that, or the veggie burgers as well. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm looking at, there's a fair amount of chemicals there. I think I should just be eating more of the whole food side of it. The frozen soups, however, you make the healthy stuff, you can freeze it away, heat it up quickly, get it going. I just want to give you some quick examples of a healthy breakfast, because breakfast you can usually control. It's the lunchtime in the midst of the busy day they can get send astray. But if you have a healthy breakfast to start out with, it can really help. So there's lots of good options in healthy breakfast. This is what we have at home. So you can't even see the smoothie underneath all the kind of extra hemp hearts and flax seeds and pumpkin seeds and blueberries and Brazil nuts and raisins. So that's just like I think I counted like 14 or 15 different foods in my breakfast. And you want, sorry, I'm just going to add one more point. During the week, you want to eat 30 different types of healthy foods, 30 or more maximizes your microbiome's diversity, right? So different foods feed different bacteria in your gut, and you want the more diversity is better. Examples of the healthy lunch. So you're looking for these options, and more you can kind of find them in the grocery store. You can tell I took this picture, right? Because it's not very well framed, et cetera, et cetera. But there I am with the cauliflower chickpea curry with the turmeric, some whole grain rice. Yes, I have some chips in the background here. I like my guacamole, and then you're adding the salad. That to me makes me feel good. So each to his own, but it's a healthy, diverse food that gives me all the micronutrients I need. Healthy suppers, again, there are lots of different ways to go at this. Another example of healthy supper, a very smoothie. So again, we have more of the technology that allows us to get those whole foods into convenient ways of eating them. So there. Okay. I'm going to finish off with something that's very important, which is around ketogenesis. And first of all, I'm not a fan of the ketogenic diet. So high fat, adequate protein, low carb, each to his own. If that works for you, great. It's hard to maintain because I really want you to maintain your diet for years to come, right? What makes you feel good? You shouldn't be feeling hungry. You shouldn't be feeling like you're denying yourself. You want to get into that routine where, oh, that hits the spot. It makes me feel good. And I'm just going to maintain that diet for years because that's my body feels good doing that. So we're going to talk about ketogenesis. Yes, if you're really super strict, it's been a helpful treatment for epilepsy. But in my mind, it's missing many of the antioxidants. Like you're missing out on the fruits and vegetables that would be healthier for you. And you can't compromise on the fiber. And fiber, I think, is critical to your health. So I'm not a fan. You guys can be a fan. That's fine by me. Okay. I do want to talk about ketogenesis because this is a very, very important last point is around time restricted eating, and not just what you eat, but when you eat has an influence on the health of your body. And so to describe this, if you eat a meal, the carbohydrate part of that goes into the cells, but also into the liver, into glycogen, and you store some into the fat cells. The fatty acids, which is the fat in your diet, go right into the fat cells directly. So in the eating phase, you're kind of storing up. And then as you stop eating, you're burning off all those calories in the bloodstream. Then you're burning off the glycogen, which is the sugary stuff in your liver. And then ultimately, you have to start processing your fatty acids, the fat cells. And they do that by producing ketones. And the takeaway is you really need to do both. You need to be in the sugary phase when you eat, and you need to be in the ketogenic phase when you don't eat. And you need to cycle through that every day. Every day. You're not doing just one or the other. It's the cycling in and out that's super important. The ketogenic part is very important because the ketones actually improve lots of cell function. I think of it as the rest and recovery phase within your 24-hour cycle. It makes the cells more resilient to stress. You eat up the kind of weak cells or the bits within the bloodstream. And ultimately, it decreases inflammation, which is that irritation or the chemicals that are causing problems. Another way to think about it is it allows your gut to heal itself, right? You eat the meal, you get all that stomach acids, it irritates all the lining there. You have to give your stomach and the rest of your gut a break to actually heal itself in before you repeat the process. So super important to have some time restricted eating. Why is this true? It's all the cells are also on a circadian rhythm, right? You're not eating a huge steak at 3 a.m. It just doesn't feel good, right? So we eat during the day and then we don't eat at night, essentially, is the way to kind of think about it. And if you do just that, if you eat the same thing, you process your blood sugars better. You have less of those insulin spikes. There's less fat production, better blood pressure, lots of other benefits I'm going to show you recently. So to take away the kind of how you do this phase, try not to eat for the first hour of the day. And you can have your coffee or tea, just no calories in it. right? So no sugar, no milk. And then don't eat for the last 2 or 3 hours prior to going to sleep. And then you can start to extend that further. So you're eating your supper earlier or eating your breakfast later is probably the healthier way to go at it. So I'll give you some ideas. I don't even like the word fasting because it sounds like you're denying yourself. So I don't talk about fasting. I'm talking about time restricted eating. So typically I'd say if we aim for maybe eating for 10 hours during, within the 10-hour window and not eating for 14 hours overnight. Whereas periodic fasting has to do with trying to take down your calories on the weekend. I don't like the calorie counting. I do not like people, looking, measuring their weight. I think if you eat well and your body feels good and you're exercising, you're feeling strong, that's way more important than any number on a scale, right? So fitness always trumps fatness in my mind. So we want to stay away from the calorie counting. There's some actually interesting data around true fasting, i.e. not eating anything just prior to chemotherapy and then for 24 hours after chemotherapy. It's as if the cancer cells are much more vulnerable to this kind of time-restricted eating than the normal cells. And so there's a kind of differential cell kill, and maybe will make the chemotherapy stronger or more effective, I should say. However, that's just like this early data there. So how do you do this? How do you actually train yourself to get stronger and better at this? And it's like a surgeon, you kind of build up your capacity over months by being able to produce and metabolize the ketones, the kind of source of fat energy for yourself. So you're not going to be able to do it right away. It's better to kind of slowly build up your strength like a professional athlete. And so I've given you a kind of a summary of how you might kind of build your tolerance up. I think not eating for 14 hours is probably a reasonable goal. Or is it 12 hours? Is it 13 hours? Is it 16 hours? It depends on how your body responds to time-restricted eating. And again, it shouldn't be a chore per se. It should be like, this feels good. So we're aiming for that 12 to 14 hours of not eating overnight. I think that's the takeaway. So as you're building up your capacity in those times where you're feeling a little bit hungry first thing in the morning because you're trying to stretch it a little bit, yes, you're gonna feel a little bit more tired or irritable, maybe a little bit of dehydration. Maybe then you're at risk of kind of overeating, etc. So this is expected. However, usually it's low, not very long lasting, right? So you're training yourself. Okay, so the next slide is the key slide. This is why we have intermittent fasting, because it's healthier for us. It allows the tissues to heal itself. So for instance, even the heart muscle can function better. The kidneys start to regenerate more. The liver, it boosts immune function. Ding, 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 ding. There's the cancer side. Glucose tolerance. We don't want the sugars to spike because of the issues around insulin. It promotes weight loss and yet not muscle weight loss. Helps prevent cancer. If I'm going to say that, it's like if you know something helps to prevent cancer, then you want to do that after you get a cancer diagnosis. Our fat metabolism is better and our brain functions better. It's almost as if you're healing your brain by giving it some time away from dealing with all these chemicals that are coming its direction. So that's why I'm a real proponent of time restricted eating. Vegan diet, yes, I've told you already. I would just say whole foods that are diverse. You probably need to supplement and just make sure you're getting a good intake of diverse food. So I am a true proponent. Chocolate, good or bad? Yes, right. So it's not about denial, but we really want high cocoa content. Soy, good or bad? Yes, actually, it's a good food. But again, we don't want to overdose. And there are different types of soy products. Again, do your research. Find out, the forms of soy that feel right, seem right for you. There's different products. Organic. I happen to like to put that one into a stir fry. It's like high in protein and it feels good for me. Organic necessary. I prefer, less pesticides. It forces the farmers and promotes organic farming. There are some foods that are higher in pesticides. Can you alkalize your body? No, is the answer. So the idea is that you change the balance between the acid and the bases and so on. But the point is that your body is going to adjust that no matter what. So you can let go of any alkalization diets because you're either going to blow it off or pee it off one way or the other. So don't get sucked into that one. Alcohol, less than 6 drinks, more like less than 1 drink per week is probably the update on that side. Low carb versus low fat versus fat X. Give it up. Eat what makes you feel good. Like you want to think about those whole foods. I think the healthy swaps are the secret. It really is the secret. If you can get the healthier foods integrated in as the calories, it's helpful. And so you're not bringing home this unhealthy ultra processed junk, and therefore you don't have access to it, and you're forced into eating the stuff that's actually good for you. I like this idea of eating the veggies and whole foods first in a meal because then it stretches my gut, makes me feel good. I'm less likely to overeat. And so the hunger center is actually functioning better and not having ultra processed foods. It's the pattern. You want the pattern to be that of variety. And lastly, I'd say thinking about a slow transition into the foods that you enjoy, right? Because I don't think you're gonna be able to do this like overnight. It's like practicing and figure out, well, which dishes work, which dishes make me feel better. And slowly over months, you get better and better and better until it just feels good to eat that way. And you're like looking at the ultra processed stuff and going like, no, my body does not feel good with that. I just do not want to go there. And it's like you've lost this craving once you're there. Tips to making it work: at least one veggie meal. I got you that one. We package this very well within our program, the Cancer Patient Empowerment Program, because diet is so important. We're actually talking about it every day. And it's a daily email from myself, an oncologist. My wife was a psychology professor, scientist, every day hitting you. Try this. The different weeks, the healthy swap weeks, mindfulness eating week. There's, different types of fruits and vegetables. And although you might not be able to try every fruit and vegetable that we mentioned in the program, it's a reminder to say, how is it that I can choose healthy? And so there's daily videos, daily emails, and there's even a cooking video once per week. So we actually teach it. And then there's a whole capacity, strength training, exercise, time restricted eating, relaxation, science of sleep, habit formation, stress reduction, relationships. Is like very, very comprehensive. We have a buddy system, monthly video conferences, which are really fun and keep it organic and fun. And actually cancerpep.com, I made that mistake on that slide, is the site. You can go to that site, cancerpep.com, check us out, watch the 10-minute video. We would love you to have you join the program. Okay, I'm just going to point to another couple of resources. Inspire Health is an amazing organization in Vancouver. They have some really nice recipes on their websites, right? So again, you want to test out those recipes. The other one is Gilda's Club in Toronto. They have this great chef, Amy Symington, who offers lots of positive, healthy, great looking, great tasting foods. And lastly, we can also kind of educate ourselves that if we can eat more vegetables, we're actually going to help from a kind of diet, a planetary perspective and global warming and so on. So bless Greta. Okay, so I'll finish there. I'll leave up my email address if you want to contact me directly, rob.rutledge@nshealth.ca. But I think we'll likely finish the recording now and open it up to Q&A so people can stay and get their questions answered. So thanks, Trevor, and the entire CCSN team. Thank you.